good afternoon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm David Probert. I'm the Chief Executive of Moorfields Eye Hospital. It's a real pleasure to join you briefly this afternoon to take you through a sort of whistle stop of the year that we've just been through as part of this annual general meeting, and an opportunity for you at the end to take from me, members of the board, members of our team, take any questions you may have on any of the issues raised or any of the issues of the year, before handing over to some exciting presentations from two of our keynote speakers. I make no excuse for the fact that I always begin this presentation, as both Rob and the chairman have done, by thanking the fabulous staff of Moorfields Eye Hospital. It's an absolute pleasure and an incredibly proud moment to stand up here in front of you, representing all 2,500 of them. They do a tremendous job through often difficult circumstances, and I'd like us maybe to put our hands together to thank the staff of this hospital before we start. Thank you. Along with the staff, and I know there were many opportunities to thank people as well, I'd like to thank the many charities that support us, of which there are a large number, but two in particular, both the Friends of Moorfields, who have again done an exceptional job of helping support by volunteering and stewarding and helping today's event in their fabulous green jumpers, and Zippies, who are always there supporting and guiding patients around our hospital, and of course the Moorfields Eye Charity, who do a tremendous job supporting not just this event, but many of the initiatives that we have underway in our hospital. So thank you to both those, but to all the charities, the volunteers and the supporters of this organisation. So I'm just going to take you through the year that's gone. So just to remind everybody, we started this year with a relatively simple opportunity, or we thought it'd be simple, just to refresh our strategy. Refreshing a strategy we thought wouldn't be too difficult, because you're answering a relatively simple question. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And how do you get there? Well, it was far more difficult than we thought it would be. Not because we don't know where we want to go. We have a pretty clear direction of travel. We want to be the leading, if not one of the leading eye hospitals in the world, and maintain that position. We want to collaborate far more and far greater with our partners, in particular with UCL and the Institute of Ophthalmology, to maintain that position. But the world around us is changing. So it seemed like an absolutely perfect time to just double check where we are in our strategy. And I've summarized it on the first slide, and many of you will see this within your annual review packs, where we got to in terms of the four key priorities of our strategy. And the first strap line is really just helping us understand what we refer to as the 3 Ds, that we're here to discover, we're here to develop, and we're here to deliver. And I think all of us, certainly all of us involved in setting that strategy, of which there is almost 400 different groups and people involved, would absolutely agree that none of this is possible unless we work together. So that became the first start of our refresh strategy. Then looking at discovery. The reason Moorfields plays such an important role across the globe is that we have a key role in discovery. And not just scientific discovery. We're going to hear some fantastic science and translational science from James Bainbridge later, but also about how we look after this growing demand for eye services when we're facing a climate of limited resources. And not just on a big scale, and I think Pierce is going to talk in some detail about that later, but also how we manage it and we do things differently in our clinics. And for many of you who are patients, I hope you've started to see small elements of difference in the way we're trying to make changes. We haven't got it right perfectly, but we are looking at how we discover and develop things differently every day. And then discovering something, developing it, is all very interesting, but it's pretty pointless unless you then start to deliver it. And we take our role as a national leader in ophthalmology incredibly seriously. We train about half of the UK's ophthalmologists at any one time. So we have an important role in making sure that whatever we discover here at Moorfields, we spread as far and as wide as possible. And at the same time, we learn as much as we can from others around us to make sure we're doing as well as many others and learning from everybody, not just here in the UK, but across the globe. So just a reminder of where we got to with our strategy. Key part of that, as I mentioned, is innovation and discovery, and we'll be hearing a bit more about that later on. I joined Rob in congratulating the team that were involved in the BBC documentary, I kind of rushed home to watch it, even though I had it set on record on my Sky box. But I thought, just in case I missed it, not quite getting used to iPlayer being available, of course, you can watch it over and over again. But I was filled with enormous pride seeing the amount of exciting work that this hospital and the staff within this hospital and our colleagues at UCL have been engaged with. We pick out two particular areas, already mentioned by the chairman, the London Project to Cure Blindness, but also you'll be hearing later from Dr. Piers Keane the work that we've been undertaking, again in partnership with our colleagues at DeepMind. Being involved in exciting discoveries, being involved in innovation is an incredibly important part of what we do. But none of that is relevant unless we keep our eye, if you excuse the pun, on the most important thing, which is quality. So the real quality of how we're delivering good care, excellent care, outstanding care to the people who need it most. And about 750,000 people come through our doors in a year, slightly less some years, slightly more, but we're seeing a growing number year on year. And the most important priority of us as a board and all of our staff is to ensure that the quality of care we give to them remains excellent. I've highlighted just two examples there of things that we are particularly proud of. Looking at visual stability after macular degeneration injections is the first highlight, where again we're outperforming the national standard. And secondly, looking at successful outcome 12 months after having surgery for corneal cross-linking, where again we're outperforming the national standard. There are 14 core different sets of standards that we measure ourselves on a quarterly basis. And I'm delighted that during one of our quarters last year, we hit every single standard. So we're either outperforming the national standard or outperforming the global standard. But that's a really important part of what we do. And it's probably the most important part of what we do. But we also have many other areas of performance by which we're managed. So just to give you a flavour of how busy the year was, we treated a record number of patients across our NHS sites. We now have 31 UK sites. We now have 3 sites in the United Arab Emirates. All of those sites saw growth in the amount of patients that we were seeing. Across all of those sites, we achieved all of the national waiting time targets, which is great testament, not just to our clinical staff who work incredibly hard to make sure that patients are seen on time and within time, but also to the administrative staff who often don't get the credit they deserve working behind the scenes to ensure that patients are seen rapidly and quickly and on time. A waiting target is an interesting measure. What's more important for me is that patients don't wait a long period of time to be seen. We haven't always got that right, but against the national standards, we're doing incredibly well in comparison, particularly to many other NHS organisations struggling against the same sort of challenges we have been. Really importantly as well is our measurement of how our friends and family, how the friends and family tests describe the way that people feel about Moorfields. Would you recommend this hospital to your friends and family? And I'm delighted that 97% of the friends and family test respondents said that they would. In 1 month this year, it actually went up to 99%. So it's a small test. It's a qualitative test more than anything in some respects, but it's a really important test on performance. And just to give you a flavour again, I mentioned 750,000 patients who have been seen across all of our sites, patient contacts. As most of you will know, most of those patients are seen in an ambulatory setting, i.e. they don't stay overnight in beds as the model of care for ophthalmology has grown and developed. But I would point out again, although we've seen slightly less patients through the traditional model of our A&E, we're still seeing near 100,000 patients a year, which when put in perspective is as busy as quite a number of district general hospitals and even some of our bigger teaching hospitals here in the UK. And our A&E continues to remain busy and yet continues to outperform the national waiting time standards, even during some of the most difficult periods of time for the NHS this year. So 98.5% was the amount of time that people were waiting within the 4-hour target of our A&E. Is that good enough? Well, it's one of the best performances in the UK, but of course it's not good enough. We want our patients to be seen as quickly and as swiftly as possible. But the team have done a tremendous job to continue to maintain this target. Again, against targets for cancer, for diagnostic testing, for the 18-week period of referral to treatment, we continue to outperform the national targets. But I just wanted to assure you all as an audience, there isn't a single person saying that has a green tick against the national targets, therefore we can sit back and relax. Our aim is to get better and to ensure our experience for you, for your friends, for your family, and for the population around us continue to improve. Because patients really do remain at the heart of everything we do. And if we are reporting good statistics, that's one thing. But actually more important for us is that we are meeting the targets and that our patients are telling us that their experience with us is good and positive, as much as it can be in what's often a very difficult period of circumstances. This year, we've worked really hard to continue to develop that. We've developed a patient participation strategy, which is starting to really change the way we think and we operate as a management group, the way we make decisions, the way we ensure that patients are involved, not just at the end of the decision-making process, but right at the beginning. And I would mention, as the chairman has Project Oriel, the move of our hospital here from City Road over to the King's Cross St Pancras area. This is right at the very beginning of that planning, and already we are looking for patient input and patient support to help us make the right decisions as we move forward. We have launched our first patient and carer forum, again, which has challenged some of the ways that we've traditionally worked and operated, and that's a really good thing and something that we're looking for more and more of the board. And a small but really important example of how we're trying to address the needs of our patients is by introducing a new hospital passport, and that's particularly relevant for patients with learning difficulties. And it just allows us to identify their needs and ensure that where possible, we can help those patients be in an environment that is more supportive, less noisy, less turbulent, less challenging to the things that they struggle with. And I was really pleased at a recent meeting with colleagues from MENCAP and a number of other NHS organisations that they gave us great praise for focusing on the very important needs of some of our more vulnerable patients. And finally, there's a few statistics flying around, and you can use statistics as much as you want to demonstrate success or indeed failure. But certainly our new City Road development, we've seen at least a 38% improvement in some of our patient experience for the glaucoma clinic, where we know we've struggled with waiting experience. Just trying to find ways to help ensure people can be diagnosed more quickly and move forward our process more speedily. And I'm a bit of a social media person, at least on Twitter. I can't do Facebook, I'm afraid. It's probably not a bad thing. But it's a great thing for me as chief executive every week that people do hunt me down and send me messages. And I have to say, on the whole, those messages are very, very positive about their experience of our staff. We've put up just a few. I read every compliment that comes into our organisation, and I write to everyone who has written us a compliment. And the pile I write back every week is about that big. I also read, probably more importantly, every single complaint, and I respond to that individually. The pile is much smaller. So that's one sense of indication. But to be honest, our biggest sense of energy is on that smaller pile and how we get things right. But it is incredibly uplifting to hear some of the comments that people are sending through to us. And the reason they send those through are, as I mentioned right at the very beginning, because of the quality of our staff and the effort that they all put in ensuring that we deliver first-class care. So we ran our staff survey this year, as we do with every NHS organisation. We received a response rate of 57%, which is actually really, really high. So this is no longer getting a bit of a response from people, whether they're slightly upset or slightly happy. This is a good chunk of our staff telling us how they feel about life at Moorfields. And I was really pleased to read that Moorfields is rated as one of the best NHS hospitals to work for and to receive NHS care. We were ranked one of the highest for staff motivation. And the Moorfields Star event, which happens once a year, a fabulous event. We had 400 nominations, nominated by members of the public, by other members of staff, by patients, for people who they feel are going the extra mile and deserve the recognition. Again, there are lots of areas we need to work on that came back from the staff survey, really important areas, and that is remaining an absolute focus. But it was, again, incredibly uplifting to receive such good and positive news. So we don't want to stand still. And it was interesting. I didn't know Rob was going to quote Don Berwick, but it really is interesting, the concept that you can be quite happy with how you're doing and rest on your laurels and hope everything works fine. Well, we all know that the NHS is in a difficult and turbulent time, so you can't stand still even if you wanted to. But my job as chief executive, and that of my colleagues on the board, is to make sure that our wonderful clinicians, our clinician scientists, our staff, we don't stand still for them, because we have to keep pushing them, keep pushing ourselves to make sure we create an environment where we really do succeed and drive forward change. One of those key areas is developing an education and training, which is absolutely critical. And I was really pleased this year that we appointed Professor Nora Colton as a joint director of education between ourselves and UCL to really help drive the education agenda forward. We've been supporting enhanced nursing roles and different ways of delivering and supporting the wonderful talent we have in our nursing colleagues here. The Mary Seacole Leadership Programme, we've now gone through 4 cohorts of support, and I've been incredibly impressed by the level of apprentices and schemes that we've developed here at this hospital to support not only local talent, but talent across London, people who want to get into work, not just in the traditional craft specialties, but in a number of other specialty areas. And we're very much looking forward to the day that we have our first apprentice director. And there's no reason we shouldn't, because we should be supporting talent and supporting talent as it grows and develops. I mentioned the NHS is facing turbulent times. It's in turbulent times. One of the ways that we support ourselves through those difficult challenges is by diversifying and ensuring that we have an enterprising nature to what we do. 2 key areas of that belong in our commercial divisions. And I'm pleased to say that our Moorfields private service, based here at London City Road, continues to do well, to grow year on year, and is making good progress. And also our 3 services now over in the Middle East are engaging in what is proving to be a good and successful year this year. And it's now 10 years since we celebrated the opening of our service in Dubai. And money sadly does matter. The way we continue to invest in training and developing staff, the way we develop our science and support initiatives to make patient experience better, is by ensuring that we remain solvent and we develop a reinvestment surplus. So it was very positive this year to report that our NHS income remained relatively stable, and that our private and commercial income continued to increase, giving us an overall surplus of £5.7 million. So if you're an accountant, and some of you may be in the room, and you look at those figures, you'll think 5.7 looks like a good surplus. But of course, set on the backdrop of 220 million, it doesn't take an awful lot of change in the environment to make us quite unstable. So our job is to continue to generate a surplus for reinvestment. And just a reminder, we are a hospital that has no shareholders, that pays no bonuses. Every single penny we make, we reinvest back into our purpose of being here, which is for being an NHS hospital. So the year ahead, you're going to hear a little bit more about this afternoon. I think that's the back of Pierce's head. I'm just looking at Pierce to say if I think it certainly is. But the year ahead is even more exciting, I think, than the year we've just been through, which has at times involved us making tremendous decisions and a tremendous number of steps forward. But I'm really looking forward to it. I want to thank you for your support. Coming here on a busy, hot day is never easy. This AGM every year always seems to be in the heat. That's London in July for you. But it is really important, all of the support that you give to us. Our staff really do appreciate the feedback. And I just want to leave you, before I open the floor to questions, on one note, really, which is that what I've highlighted through this presentation is on the whole generally very, very positive things. And we've had an incredibly positive year. But I just want to reassure you again, our role is to get better. It's not to stand still. And so we haven't always got it right, but we are working incredibly hard. My team is working incredibly hard to constantly move forward and develop. And I hope that you'll join us in that journey. And I hope where you need to, you see those real fruits of change.